The Las Vegas Raiders are expected to hire the Patriots offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels as their next head coach.
With breaking news out of Green Bay, Davante Adams, who looks like the Raiders are acquiring him from the Packers.
The AFC West putting together some strong pass rushing groups headlined by the recent acquisitions of Chandler Jones to Vegas.
Listen, I think they're coming for the Chiefs. I think they're that good.
The Raiders had one of the most exciting off seasons of any team, and that's what happens when you go out and trade for one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, Davante Adams, hire a brand new flashy head coach, Josh McDaniels, and get a stud edge rusher in Chandler Jones. There is a lot to be excited about in Las Vegas, and the Raiders have a damn good roster. But whether or not the Raiders can actually reach their full potential is going to lie in the hands of Derek Carr. There are some questions and criticisms when it comes to Derek Carr and whether or not he is the right guy. Now, remember, the Raiders drafted him back at the 2014 draft in the second round. And honestly, Derek probably should have gone higher if it wasn't for the bad taste that his brother David Carr left in everyone's mouth after he went first overall and he was just a complete bust in Houston. Derek Carr has started for the Raiders from the second he stepped foot in Oakland, and he had plenty of really good seasons despite some pretty bad teams around him. The Raiders went 12-3 in 2016 under Carr, and he ended up throwing for 28 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, but unfortunately, his season ended when he fractured his fibula. Carr had a passer rating of over 100 in both 2019 and 2020, the only 2 years he's accomplished the feat. He threw for a career-high 4,804 yards in 2021 and had 23 touchdowns to 14 interceptions, while Las Vegas went 10-7 before barely losing in the playoffs to the eventual AFC champion Bengals. In the offseason, the Raiders gave Carr a 3-year, $121.5 million extension, $40.5 million a year. And now he has to prove that he's worth that money, but he's going to have some help from his old college teammate, Davante Adams. Adams was Carr's favorite target in college at Fresno State. Adams redshirted his first year at Fresno State and then instantly got a big role in 2012, and he was fantastic. Adams had 102 catches for 1,312 yards and 14 touchdowns, all of which were the most in the Mountain West. He was the conference freshman of the year, and he ended up being named the MVP of the Hawaii Bowl. Then, as a redshirt sophomore, Adams led the country with 131 receptions. He turned them into 1,719 yards and 24 touchdowns. That was 8 more than anyone else in the country and a conference record. He was an All-American, and during the year, Adams set the Fresno State career records for both receptions and touchdown receptions. Reminder, he only played 2 years. Then the Packers drafted Davante Adams back in the second round of the 2014 NFL Draft. His first 2 seasons in the pros, they were pretty disappointing. He had less than 1,000 yards and just 4 touchdowns over the span, but a monster breakout was on its way. In 2016, Adams had 997 yards and 12 touchdowns, and from there, he just continued to get better and better. He went for over 1,000 for the first time in 2018 with 1,386, and then, Adams had 13 touchdowns with it. In 2020, he had over 1,300 yards again, and he even led the league with 18 touchdowns. Last season, he had over 1,500 yards. Adams is a 2-time All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowler. He's just a stud. Then in the offseason, he was traded to the Raiders in exchange for a first and second round pick. With it, Las Vegas gave him a 5-year, $141.25 million deal, making him the highest paid wide receiver in the league at the time. The Raiders have a couple of other important pass catchers past Adams too, like Hunter Renfrow, who just got a 2-year, $32 million extension this offseason. The Raiders drafted Hunter Renfrow in the 5th round in 2019 after what felt like a really long career at Clemson, where he literally walked on and was all ACC twice and won 2 national championships. Renfrow has played a lot, even since his rookie year, and he had over 600 yards and 4 touchdowns. Renfrow has played a lot, even since his rookie year, when he had 600 yards and 4 touchdowns. Then in 2020, he had over 600 yards again. And last season, well, he kind of broke out. Renfrow had over 1,000 yards for the first time and added 9 touchdowns. The expected wide receiver 3 for Las Vegas in 2022 is a bit of an unknown, or at least somewhat unproven, Demarcus Robinson. Now, the talent is there. Remember, he started his career in Kansas City after they took him in the 4th round in 2016. He only really played special teams as a rookie, and then for the next 2 years, that was still his main role. He had just 500 yards in total receiving over the span. Robinson started seeing more playtime in 2019, that wild Patrick Mahomes MVP season. Robinson had 449 yards and 4 touchdowns, and then the following year, he had over 400 yards again. But last season, he had just 264 yards, though, and he signed in Las Vegas after the year. There is the possibility that the Raiders are a little weak outside of Davante Adams and Hunter Renfrow, and there's no doubt that those two can carry the load, but they don't have to alone, because the Raiders have one of the best tight ends in football, Darren Waller. Waller has one hell of an interesting story. He was actually drafted as a wide receiver back in 2015 by the Ravens in the 6th round. He didn't play much in Baltimore, mainly because he was suspended for violating the league's substance abuse policy a few times, and he did end up having to undergo a rehab program. Once he was allowed to come back, he was signed off the Ravens practice squad to the Raiders. Wallers are going to have a lot of good weapons on offense, but the big question is whether or not the offensive line is going to be able to keep up, and they probably won't. It's going to make life very hard for Kenyon Drake and Josh Jacobs. There aren't a lot of reasons to be excited about the line, but the biggest determining factor of whether or not it is good maybe is going to lie in the hands of Alex Leatherwood, who, he sucked last year as a rookie, and even if he can just be okay, that would be a huge benefit to the Raiders. He was selected in the 1st round of the 2021 NFL Draft, and like I said, he just really struggled as a rookie. Leatherwood did play in all 17 games, but after he was so bad at tackle, he was moved to guard. He was top 5 in the league in both penalties against and sacks given up, and was ranked the 3rd worst guard in football. There are still a lot of questions surrounding the Raiders, and it's going to be up to new head coach Josh McDaniels to put it all together in his 2nd chance. Josh McDaniels has been around the NFL for a long time. He got his first job with the Patriots in 2001, and he moved all the way up to offensive coordinator before he was named the head coach of the Broncos. It didn't go great though, like at all. Denver went 8-8 in his first year, and then he got fired midseason the next year once the Broncos fell to 3-9. McDaniels made a quick stop as the Rams OC before returning to New England, where he spent about a decade as the Patriots offensive coordinator before the Raiders hired him to be their next head coach. On the other side of the ball, which is going to be led by Patrick Graham, who has been a defensive coordinator for the Dolphins and the Giants before McDaniels brought him to Las Vegas. Luckily, there's a lot of good talent to work with this season, like huge offseason acquisition, Chandler Jones. Jones is a beast. He was drafted by the Patriots back in the 1st in 2012. He started from the jump in New England, and he was pretty damn good. Jones spent 4 years with the Patriots and had 36 sacks over the span, and he even won a ring before he was traded to the Cardinals for a 2nd and Jonathan Cooper. Now, Jones was good in New England, but he was even better in Arizona. In 2017, Jones led the league with 17 sacks and 28 tackles for loss. 2 years later, he led the league with 8 forced fumbles and had 19 sacks. Jones had a fantastic 6 years with the Cardinals before he became a free agent. And like I said, he inked a 3-year, $51 million deal with the Raiders. In his career, Jones is already a 2-time All-Pro and 4-time Pro Bowler, and lucky for Jones, he gets to team up with one of the best young edge rushers in the game, Max Crosby. The Raiders used a 4th rounder in 2019 on him, and he has been an absolute gem. As a rookie, he had 10 sacks, and after the season, Crosby actually decided to check in for rehab, but never missed time on the field. He had 7 sacks in 2020, and then 8 sacks in 2021, and was even named an All-Pro and made the Pro Bowl. In March 2022, on the 2-year anniversary of becoming sober, Crosby signed a 4-year, $98.98 million extension with the Raiders. You can probably guess guess what number he wears. Crosby had to fight through addiction, as did Darren Waller. Josh McDaniels got a second chance as a head coach after he failed the first time, and Davante Adams gets a fresh start with a familiar friend that's trying to prove himself. The Raiders are a team that are easy to love, and luckily for them, they're scary good too.